Hello, everyone. I am Nisha Khare. Welcome to Wellness Chats with Nisha. Today I'm in dialogue with Jasabel Ramirez for the Stigma-Free Society. I'm the co-founder of Human Biography and of Women of Wonder. I'm a director, producer, registered clinical counselor, and through this Facebook Live event, I am representing the Stigma-Free Society, a Canadian registered charity that aims to reduce stigma of all kinds with a focus on mental health. They promote mental wellness, education for youth, while providing resources for educators, school counselors, and parents and guardians. The Society's goal is to create an awareness of the various stigmas that exist in the world, develop an understanding of the challenges that numerous people face, and encourage people to foster acceptance of themselves and of others. To learn more, please visit www.stigmafreesociety.com. And so I would like to welcome Jasabel. Jasabel, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you. So Jasabel is a Puerto Rican and Mexican American born and raised in Yonkers, New York. I just like saying the word Yonkers. It's so fun. So Jasabel is a podcast host of Becoming a Sunflower. Great title.
Thank
And
you.
it's a show about mental health, highlighting her own struggles and taking on guests to do the same in order to raise awareness and break the stigma behind these mental struggles that we all face on a daily basis. Jasabel is a recent Bachelor's of Social Work graduate, supporting disabled adults in her current employment. And Jasabel uses her voice to empower, educate, and heal herself and her community. She believes through building the courage to surrender to her fears and speaking out, she has found her passion and her purpose.
Yeah.
Well, that's just beautiful, Jasabel.
Thank you.
And so, Jasabel, why don't you start off by telling us a bit about your podcast, Becoming a Sunflower? It's so interesting.
So I started Becoming a Sunflower in January of 2020, if not December, but it was around the new year. And I had started it after experiencing panic attacks at work. And panic attacks, anxiety attacks, they weren't new for me. It started very early on in high school. There were so many things that were happening in my life very quickly, a lot of unprocessed trauma that I was experiencing. But coming into my adulthood life and seeing that I still had all of these emotions and the way that my body was responding to it really made me realize that something truly needed to be worked on. And so I started therapy. And when I began therapy, I realized that through talking and, using my voice to just say things out loud, right? Because we hold a lot of emotions and experiences within ourselves and we kind of bottle it up. And it's almost like keeping a secret, right? Like, how much longer can you hold on to it? And so when I started talking to my therapist about some of the things that have happened to me, she had said to me, I can't believe you went all of these years not saying anything about what you're going through.
Yeah.
And so I started the platform so that I could start talking more on the different subjects, the different experiences, and kind of normalize it so that when other people listen, they see that this person that looks very well put together, very have it all, educated, good job, good life, was not at all that, right? There were things that people couldn't see externally that I was really battling. And so I really wanted to normalize the conversation of mental health, right? Growing up in a Latinx household, mental health wasn't talked about. So I wanted to be the first to say, I'm going to have these conversations. I'm going to bring people on to share their stories because what I saw was there's not enough space for these stories to be told. And so I really wanted to have just this place where people can truly just let it all go and feel the release of not holding it in anymore, relating to someone on the other end that also is struggling and just continue the conversation and really just make it a beautiful thing, right? It doesn't have to be something we're shamed about. It's just a part of normal life.
Yes, I agree. It's something that sometimes I think as we, in different cultures, we are taught different ways of thinking about mental health, and that
Yeah.
sometimes, we said like, don't share it, just hide it. It's not something that we talk about. I know that happens in the Indian culture. And, but that's amazing. You found someone who said to you, like, share. I can't believe you haven't talked about this. And what was that like for you?
When she had said that, it kind of made me realize, like, wow, not only am I so brave for speaking out for myself, but, how strong am I, but also how damaged am I that it took this long. And so I feel like practices like journaling and reading out loud is different, right? So we can write things down, but it isn't until the moment that we sit there and read something or say it out loud that we truly process what we just wrote or what we just experienced. And so it kind of it she had like this long pause, and it gave me a chance to realize and take in what I had just told her and see the severity of it. And that was when I realized that this is bigger than what I'm going through. This is, something that really needs to change, because there's so many people that are just silent about abuse, about mental health struggles. And so that was really like a eye-opening moment for me.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so much silence, and the silence actually hurts us.
Yeah.
And so you have this podcast, you have this beautiful way of sharing your story that would encourage other people to share theirs, and you interview people. And so what kind of topics can listeners expect to hear on your show?
Yeah. So I have started with the first guest. We talked about breaking the stigma behind men and mental health. And so I had one of my male friends who is very vocal about self-care, about spirituality. And so we kind of had a conversation about that. I've had other conversations about community, social media. Um, I've had conversations about sexuality, relationships, finding meaningful connections. And just now, this past weekend, I was able to have a conversation with two moms to touch on motherhood and postpartum psychosis, and all these kinds of different things. I'm working on talking about my college experience as more and more students go back to school or begin their college journey. And so I want it to be always a opportunity to explore all of these things, right? Because it doesn't have to be someone that is struggling with anxiety and depression, right? It's everyday life. It's the things that we do on a daily basis that really affect us. And it's about prevention. It's about knowing what to walk into. It's about knowing the experiences that others have experienced and just being educated on it. And so there are a lot of things that I might not be able to relate to, such as being a man or being a mother, right? I have cats, but I'm not a mom. And so I always want to get different perspectives, different stories on there, to reach people that may not have something that I can relate to, but a story that a guest can relate to. And that's how we full circle are able to continue raising the awareness and touching on different things.
It's so amazing, and I love how you have a variety of topics and a variety of people, because really mental health impacts all of us, male, female, all generations, all of us. And so the name of your podcast, that evokes a lot of joy. Becoming a Sunflower. It's just so beautiful. What inspired the name?
So I've always been fascinated by sunflowers. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that. I think that they're very drawn to the flower because it's beautiful,
Yeah.
it's tall, it's bright, but it's also a metaphor for, the mental health journey, right?
Yeah.
A sunflower needs sun in order to be its light and shining
Yeah.
beauty, right? And so when I think about becoming a sunflower or being a sunflower, it's really about, looking towards the light, looking towards that healing journey, standing tall despite whatever we may have gone through, whatever person or experience that's tried and bring us down, right? It's about still having that light within you to wake up every day and just want to live another life, And so I think that it's really a sign of strength and resilience, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, that does sound super beautiful. And, you know, you talked about like the variety of guests that you bring on to interview. What do you find is connected between all of them? Because although everyone's different, you know, and you have all different kinds of guests, what's the connection?
I think definitely the common thing I find in a lot of guests and a lot of the feedback that I get from them is that they haven't had the opportunity to share whatever it is that we just discussed, right? They live in households with people that may support them, but no one really sits there and asks, like, how are you really doing?
Yes.
Especially in New York where it's like, hey, how are you? And the person walks away before you can even answer them. So it's
Wow.
really about just genuinely wanting to know that person's story and wanting to understand what it's like to sit in their lifestyle for a day and have a picture of what it is that they've experienced. And so definitely just having that safe space to share and be able to fully be themselves without shame or judgment.
Such an important thing, that having people to listen and not just listen openly, but care about what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's having those real moments because I think you're right. Like for people to say, how are you, but walk away before you've even started
Yeah.
answering all that, that shows a lot. That's and like you're saying, that's life in New York. And I think that, becomes life in many places.
Mm-hmm.
And that can become a very lonely place for so many.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we do need to connect. We do need to feel cared for and heard.
Definitely.
And so maybe you could tell us a bit about how your own personal mental health journey has impacted your podcast journey.
So I think once I was able to acknowledge that I wasn't okay, I was able to show up as my authentic self, right? So one thing I always mention on the podcast is I never want to show up and like half it. I don't want to fake it. I don't want to be dishonest about anything. If I'm not feeling good, then I'm not going to record that week. I have to make sure that I'm taking care of my cup before I go and pour for others. And so really prioritizing that self-care aspect, because even just sitting and having a conversation with someone, that can be very emotional and can really take a lot out of you to just sit there and take it in. And so knowing when to set those boundaries in place and always try and show up as my authentic self, right? And just be very aware of my emotions, be very aware in the fact that, what I experience, someone else may not experience that same thing, right? Because we all process things differently. And we see our situations way different than, someone else may. And so also being aware of that and the cultural difference in the experience I had growing up. But I think that once I was able to acknowledge, I was able to really have that sense of awareness so that people don't listen and think, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay, but I'm acknowledging that I'm not a professional. I'm just a person with an experience and a story to share.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And being that person to listen and also sharing your story at the same time. And so, why do you think, it's so important to speak about mental health and stigma in such a public way?
I think that a lot of people have shame. I think that a lot of individuals, they have this kind of ego that they need to fulfill. And so by saying, I'm struggling is seen as like a sign of weakness, right? So we don't want to look weak because then people can take advantage of us, and we don't want to do that, right? So we'll go about pretending to be this strong and almighty person so that we don't let people in that can break and, you know, make us feel worse than we may already feel. And so I think that pride, I think, like I mentioned before, culture, right? Being told that, you don't have anything to stress about, you're just a kid, can really make a person just be like, okay, let me just continue to suffer in silence. And I think that a lot of people, they don't believe that, mental health illness is a real thing, right? They think, well, no, I'm not depressed, I'm just sad, but if you're feeling sad 365 days a year, then are you really just sad, or is there something more going on? So I think that there's a lot of different things that can affect why people don't speak out publicly about these things. But I think that I definitely see it becoming more normal. Like we see other celebrities, even like Demi Lovato and Diana Guerrero, who also have their podcasts and have also spoken out about, just not being okay. And I love that for our society and our generation too.
Yeah, it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so valuable to see that no matter who you are, whether you're a celebrity or not, that, depression can impact you or mental health can impact you. And
Mm-hmm.
so, at what age did you start noticing, you know, that something was happening within you personally?
So, being that I do have some childhood trauma, I have recollections as early as 3 years old, knowing that something was not right. But it wasn't until I was around 12 when I came home and, I was having an awful day at school. I remember I was like bullied that day. I was thinking about like my family situation. My mom and my stepdad were arguing with me, and I felt like everything just kind of, it was like this light that turned on, and I realized like, oh my gosh, I can't take any more of this. And I started thinking and realizing all of the things that have impacted that moment, and it hit really hard. And even just looking back at it now, being that young to have such an experience, because I see my little cousins and my siblings, and I'm just like watching how tiny they are and how I see them as just like babies, and I can't imagine them having that moment. And so it was really young. And then, just going into school feeling anxious, the constant need to go to the bathroom. And then high school, not wanting to go to school, just being tired and glued to my bed in the morning. And then even now in my adulthood, just dreading work, feeling anxious at work. So it started young, and it really did have an effect for a lot of years. But I think that now I have a better control of it, which I'm extremely grateful for.
And so, how did you start to feel? What helped you feel that you had better, like, management of it, of your mental health?
One thing that my therapist did help me was simply just taking a breath, because I feel like we go about our lives and we kind of forget to breathe sometimes. I know it's like essential part of our being, but we're just so like shoulders up tight, jaws clenched, teeth together. But just practicing mindfulness, practicing breathing, finding an outlet for myself. Like if I know that I'm having a stressful day, running to my yoga mat, taking a daily walk outside, and also when the anxiety comes on, like talking to myself and talking myself through it, like, hey, we're going through this again. You're in this place, you're okay. Just reminding myself that I'm okay. Like those affirmations, they come off as like cliche, but they can really help your brain really believe that, maybe I am okay. If I'm having a conversation with myself right now, maybe something is not terribly wrong.
Yes. Yeah, those are amazing ways to, uplift yourself. And so, dealing with things like mental health, and it's an ongoing journey, right? So it's like it's throughout our lives. And when do you start to notice, like, what are the signs that indicate to you, like, hey, I've got to start paying attention to what's happening within me? And so that, what are some signs that help you be aware, or other people might notice and say, like, oh, I need to pay attention to something, maybe that there's something more going on with this person in my life?
Yeah, definitely more sleep.
Yeah.
If a person that is usually like opposed to naps is suddenly sleeping throughout the day, if you notice a person is skipping meals, maybe something is wrong. I know when I'm feeling very anxious, my brain doesn't even process that I'm hungry, and I'll go like hours without lunch. I think like the pacing, like maybe walking around or touching different things, I definitely noticed that a lot. Um, Maybe someone biting their nails or tapping their foot constantly, or like an aggressive need to clean. That was a big one for me in college. I would come home and just start cleaning before I could even put my bag down. It was
Oh, yeah.
really bad. I would say those kinds of behaviors, maybe not wanting to be as social anymore, maybe a person that deletes their social media or starts cutting off friends. That's definitely a warning sign that you want to make sure you're being attentive to, because I've noticed a lot of symptoms of anxiety and depression also are very close related to suicide signs. And so we want to make sure that we're being aware of ourselves and the people that we love, because they're so hand in hand. It's very hard to tell, and we just never want to ignore the sign that could have saved someone.
Yes, yes, definitely. So important to pay attention to all the signs within yourself or people that you know.
Yeah.
And so maybe you could talk to us about your role as a social worker and how that overlaps with, what you do with your podcast and on social media.
Yeah, so I graduated with my degree in social work. And right after graduation, I started my job working at the adult day program. And so while my role is more of like a direct support kind of thing, we do focus a lot on like recreational activities. So I've seen that, just simply having lessons on like gratitude, let's say. So every Wednesdays I do gratitude with them from 10 to 10:30, and just seeing that, a lot of them, they have so much to be grateful for, but they don't think about it often until we have these lessons, and seeing how, just doing that can help people, or even with the mental health advocacy. So I'm part of two different organizations here in Yonkers. So Unique Place for Youth and Que Paso Latinx. And they're both focused on social emotional wellness, mental health awareness. And so just seeing how bringing fun little events into the community has really made people feel more engaged, feel more cared about, because a lot of people, they say they care, but it's about action. It's like, what are you really doing to show that you care about us, the people, the community? And so just being out there in the community, being out there talking to different individuals, um, has really been like a key role in the social work aspect of it, and also the advocacy work. So, just not limiting the conversations to the microphone and podcast, but taking it out into the community and trying to bring more people in. Maybe they won't be guests as a podcast, but maybe just simply having a conversation or doing something that can positively impact their day in our community can really motivate them to want to learn more about mental health, want to learn more about the different things and illnesses and warning signs and treatments and kind of things for people that they go home to and like interact with daily.
And so do you find that when you're out in the community and you're talking to people about this, are people generally open to these conversations? And
sometimes I know it's a little bit harder with like the older generations because they've already been conditioned to think otherwise. So there has been trouble with that. People don't want to hear it, they don't believe in it, and then sometimes we get turned away like, oh, are you from the government? And it's like, no, we're just doing this, we don't get paid for it, and they get discouraged. But I do find that there are, on the opposite end, a lot of people that are open to the conversation. And, in the end, we find out how much they needed someone to talk to them about these things and, how they didn't know that there were resources or organizations within their community doing these things. So it's been like a different kind of thing, but for the most part, it's been really good.
That's fabulous. It's great to have those conversations and just have them with everyone, right? Just it's a good conversation starter to even talk about your podcast and then just like open up some channels. And so are there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with today, Jasabel? Anything that you think is important or important for people to know?
Constantly running on E, like our bodies are like cars, right? So if we're constantly going on E and we're not filling our tanks, we're not maintaining the car, we're going to eventually burn out, and we're going to have to be either given away the car or just completely damaged, or we may be at the point where we can fix it but it's still pretty bad, right? So same thing with our mental health and ourselves and our bodies. So definitely prioritize self-care. Catch yourself when you're feeling stressed, catch yourself when you're doing too much, and work on preventing this for yourself. And if you are someone that is struggling mentally, emotionally, never ever be afraid to reach out, whether it's with a person that you trust or a professional. There are so many people in the world that we can talk to. I know that it can be very hard and we can easily think that no one cares, but someone does care. So I just want to leave everyone with that. Just emphasize the self-care, emphasize the self-love, and really try and be our best selves, right? We have to really care for ourselves in order to have a better and brighter future, better and brighter generations to come. So, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, our pleasure. So great to have you. So wonderful to connect with our friends over the border and all the way in New York, and to see that, as whether we're Canadian or American or wherever we are, we all face similar challenges, and that to know that, people are there for you, and whether that be a friend or often, I think it's a good place to start as a counselor, right? That you have that professional help of someone that can just listen non-judgmentally. And I just want to say, and people can listen to your podcast, Becoming a Sunflower.
Yeah.
And we're excited. So where can people find that, Jasabel?
So right now, Becoming a Sunflower is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor.fm. So it can be streamed on any of those platforms for now.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for coming, Jasabel, and sharing your story. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Just remember, take care of self, and we will see you in 2 weeks for the next Stigma Free. So bye, everyone. Enjoy your day, and bye, Jasabel.